Julian, hi. Thank you very much for being with us today. You're the CISO at VW Group UK, and you've joined us at the Nord InfoSec Dialogue on a panel about next-gen CISO strategies for securing the enterprise in a hyper-connected world. Julian, would you like to tell us a few words about you and what your role entails at VW Group?
So we were looking at various topics today. We were looking at things like GDPR. We were looking at the Internet of Things and how everything is becoming connected and what that means for us as an organisation. We were looking at the application space and actually how can we make things usable but still keep things secure. So, and then there was quite a bit of conversation about privileged identity access management as well. So they were kind of the key areas that we covered. So within the sort of the remit of my role, what I have, I cover everything from governance down through risk and compliance down into the technical. So I provide security architects into projects, for example. I do all the supplier assurance. So really everything in the security spectrum I cover. From a physical security point of view, I work with our facilities team in those areas. So I would do elements of the audit, and then if there's any remedial actions, then they would pick up on those. But really, it's everything to do with security really comes under my remit. So it's quite broad. I've always tinkered with computers. Did when I was very young, before the internet and all that sort of thing. And then I went to university, did an electronics degree. Decided I didn't want to specialise in computing. I knew I'd probably end up there, but I wanted a broader view of the world, which was in hindsight a really good thing for me to do. So I got a lot of exposure to sort of the engineering world and project management. And how the different components of technology potentially worked and the different engineering disciplines and how they all interacted. As part of that, I suppose, I played around with computer systems at university and poked them and things like that. So with the blessing of some of my lecturers, I'll have to add at this point. So I've always sort of been interested in the security element of that. So when I finished university, then I started working for a small SME. So at that point, there was only 20 people in the organisation. So although I was doing application development, and that was actually my job, I was also doing the networking, and I was also then securing servers and making sure, because it was working in the health sector, so we had patient information, so security was very key. So I kind of took that interest from university, and I was applying it right from the early days. So I was with that company 17 years. So I left college and I was there for quite some time. But over the period of time that I was doing that, I moved away from the application development after a number of years and got much more into the networking and infrastructure and the security as the company grew over time. So from the point of view of what I've done, I've kind of covered all of the stacks within the technology, which I actually think has helped. So by the time I left that organisation, I was running the IT across 3 different countries. So I was responsible for the security, the IT operations, just everything IT. I got to a point where I had to make a choice on what direction I wanted to go. Did I want to stay purely in the IT management area, or did I want to go back to what my passion was, which was information security? So I was having various conversations I was getting some coaching at the time, and I'd been doing that for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden this opportunity came up at Volkswagen. So I thought it's karma or providence or whatever you want to call it. So I took that as a good win for that opportunity, and here I am now. So I've been with VW now about 3.5 years, just coming up to. I started there working primarily in operational security and risk, and then after 7 months I stepped into the CISO role and took a broader remit. So within Group UK, so I report into the CTO, and then within my team I have a risk and compliance person, and then I have 3 contract resource who primarily are architects stroke consultants. So they do some operational work for me, but their focus is mostly servicing the business and projects, and working with suppliers to make sure what they're delivering is secure and meets our requirements. So the team is relatively small, but I suppose within the scheme of things, Volkswagen Group UK is only slightly bigger than an SME. It's about, I think if you take everyone into account, it's probably about 2,500 people, but there's probably about 1,000 people who are sort of on site at any one time. So we're relatively small in terms of Volkswagen Group worldwide, but the turnover of the company is quite big relative to the rest of the world as well. So. I think for me the biggest challenge with any CISO role is taking it from a technology-based role, which is traditionally where it's come from, and move it into a business role. I think this is one of the biggest challenges that all of us probably have, is it's still seen as an IT thing, and no matter how many times you say it's not about IT, it's always brought back to IT. As long as that reporting structure reports into IT, you're going to be sort of hampered by that. So where's the role come from? I think CISOs are beginning to be less about being the guys who say no, and it's more about how can we enable the business. It's being a little bit smarter on how we engage the business, how we speak, learning business speak, and learning to have the conversations with the business, but also be able to have those technical conversations where they need to have. And I think that's the biggest struggle, especially if you have a CISO who's come from a technical background. That's their comfort zone, that's what they know. And then they're spending more time dealing with risk and compliance or legal, and it's a different world, and it's a different language, and it's just getting comfortable working in that new world. I think the first thing is you've got to understand what the business objectives are. What are they actually trying to do? What is your business delivering? And what are its key goals? So for me within Volkswagen, I have a number of areas that, I'd say, keep me busy. So for us, our customer data is our crown jewels within the UK. We're predominantly sales and marketing organisation. So I spend a lot of time dealing with the brand digital teams, understanding what they need to do and working with them to make sure what they're providing meets their requirements, is agile and is innovative, and makes the brand come across as a happening, up-to-date brand. Then on the other side of it, I'm dealing very much with sort of the slower parts of the business who are delivering core functionality to the business. So these could be legacy systems, or it could be providing systems or functionality out to our retailer network. And then on the other flip side of that is the risk and compliance and legal guys. So I'd spend an awful lot of time talking to these guys because I do a lot of work on contract negotiations as well. So I spend a lot of time with the legal team and with the financial risk and control guys as well. I mean, traditionally within IT security and the CISO role, we've gone for the technology solutions because we come from technology backgrounds, we understand it, and technology, relatively speaking, is easy. It's a known entity, whereas people and process has historically where we've been bad. So for me, it's looking at the people element, because if you can get the cultural organisation correct within an organisation, then it's going to cover off a lot of your issues. So for example, at the moment we're running an awareness campaign, but it's not really about awareness, it's about changing the culture of the organisation and getting to a point where security is just something that is done, that they don't have to think about. It's a bit like health and safety. People may not like health and safety or agree with it, but people don't think about it, they just do it. And that's where we want to be with security, but obviously we want them to like doing it. That's a different issue. And so we're putting a lot of effort into those areas to actually raise the security awareness within the organisation, but put it in terms of people's own personal lives, because most people in our organisation are also our customers. And it's like, well, how would you expect, if you were dealing with the Amazons or the eBays, how would you expect them to be looking after you? What would you expect to be happening? These are the sort of things in your personal life you need to be doing. And then it's very easy then to put a company view on that and say, and this is why we're doing what we want to do, because it's about protecting you and our other customers. So that for me is the big motivation, is changing the people culture. Then you've obviously got the malicious threat actors from externally, and it's looking at what our biggest challenges are there. So again, the challenges again are around people, because you've got phishing emails, and no matter how much education you do, you will always get someone clicking on a phishing email. You can put technical controls in place to help mitigate what happens if someone clicks on something. But these guys are very, very clever, and a lot of the stuff that we would get sent to us has been specifically written and targeted to Volkswagen. And in fairness, sometimes it is actually very difficult to tell if it's a phishing email or not. So that's a big challenge. It's empowering business users to be able to report something they think is phishing, and give us the capability to feed back to them to say, yes, do you know what? You have a good reputational score within the business for identifying these. Because you've told us about this, we've now managed to remove this from half of the staff's mailbox. No one has clicked on it. Big thumbs up to you. And it's about giving people that kudos for, we've done something to help the organisation, and it's changing that, because the technology elements you can deal with. You can, stuff that's coming in from the perimeter, you can put controls in place, you can build websites, you can pen test them, and you can put various technical controls around that, and you can do your governance and your audit around that. But fundamentally, the weakest point you're always going to have are people. So it's then clicking on things, it's misconfigurations, and that's the thing. So it's changing your processes so that it's easier for people to do things in a more secure fashion. For me, BYOD is something I try to avoid. Certainly within the organisation I'm in now, it would be very difficult to manage. Where I was previously, it was a much smaller organisation, and it was a little bit easier to manage. So although we didn't do BYOD, it was certainly a topic which we didn't shy away from going, well, okay, we can look at this, rather than going, well, we don't really want to look at that. So, but where you have the big challenges, as you said, remote working, and if you're talking business continuity, disaster recovery, and giving people, or giving the business the ability to still function by having remote access, is okay, how do we do that in a secure fashion? If people don't have company assets and they still need to work, how can we provide them a secure and safe way of remote working? So are we looking at that? Absolutely. And again, not just from the point of view of staff, we're also looking from the point of view of third-party suppliers who we need to be able to provide access to our systems remotely. How do we secure them to make sure that they have the access they need, but they don't have any more than they need, and they don't have the ability to do something they shouldn't be able to do. Balance is absolutely possible. I mean, like anything to do with information security, it's about business risk. It's information security risk is just a risk, it's a business risk, and you can take a view on that risk. So you can take a decision that, yes, okay, we are aware of the risk and this is potentially what could happen. If your risk appetite matches that, then yes, crack on. But if your risk threshold is quite low, then you might have a different view on it. And I think that is a key thing for me for information security. It's about a risk-based approach. You've got to look what works for the business. If the business are willing to accept that risk, and that's upfront, it's documented, everyone understands it, then that's fine. But it's about going in with your eyes open and everyone understanding what that is. Again, to go back to people, for me, it's people, process, and then technology. So within the strategy that I'm putting in place, that's the areas it focuses on, and it puts the emphasis in those order, or in that order. So, it is the culture, it's making sure your processes are correct, measurable, So you have the right metrics to make sure you're not only is what you're putting into the process and what you're getting out as you would expect, but actually is that the correct process to be doing? And making sure those processes aren't processes for process sake. They actually support the business in what they want to do. And I think if you can engineer your processes and get your culture within the organization correct, then that's going to drive some of the key decision makers for strategy. Because from a technology point of view, if your culture is correct, you've got good process, then your requirement for some technical measures may be less. And then from a risk-based thing, you can say, well, okay, yes, we would like to do this in 3 years' time, but if we sort out the people in the process, we may not need to be able to do that, or want to do that. This very question last year, I had two undergraduates whose primary degree was information security, and they came to me and said, what do I need to do to be good at information security? And I said, don't work in information security. Go out there, get jobs doing application development, do some networking, understand the whole stack. Because for me, the people who are, unless you're specifically really, really interested in focusing on something like computer forensics, which is very specialist, go out there and understand the whole stack. So, do your software, do your networking, because if you understand all of those, it will make you a really, really good information security person. And then get the business skills. Absolutely key. There's too many people who have superb technical skills, but they can't communicate and they can't talk to the business. And for me, that's, it's a key interview question for me. Is like, I'll say, here's a topic, explain this to me as if I was a business user who can turn their laptop on and use email, and then now explain it to me like I'm a technical developer who's sitting in a darkened room and never sees the light of day. A lot of people can't do one or the other, and it's amazing the people who can't do either. So for me, it's understanding the stack and get your communication and your business skills sorted out. And if you get those, you'll be really good.